Hi everybody, this is Judy at Judy in the Kitchen. Today we're talking about rosemary and the different ways to preserve fresh rosemary. Now, I'm going to just give a brief overview of these in this video. If you want to see complete written instructions on how to do this, I've got a link below to my blog where I've got the instructions completely written out. And so this is just an overview of how you can preserve your fresh rosemary. Not really a demonstration per se, okay? But hopefully this will help you out. One of them is in the ice cube method, and this is where you remove the leaves from the stem, and you would wash them well first, and then let's say this is the cut end, and then this is the growth end of it, the top end of the leaf. So you would take it from the top and hold the top of it and run your hand down there, and that will help to remove the leaves from the stem. If you just kind of pinch the stem as you go down toward the cut end of the leaf, it will be pulling those leaves in the opposite direction in which they grew and help to remove them from the stem. And then what you'll do is take your washed leaves, put them in ice cube trays, and whatever amount you feel like you would want at any one time, fill that ice cube tray up with some water, put it in the freezer. Once they're frozen, transfer them into a sealed container, keep them in the freezer. When you need some rosemary in a soup or something, you take an ice cube or two, plop it in the soup, and you've got it ready to go. You could also freeze individual sprigs of rosemary, and to do that, first again you want to wash them, and then you want to dry them really well. Spread them out on a single layer in a baking sheet or a tray. Place them in the freezer for half hour or so until they're frozen, and then just transfer them to a freezer bag or a container of some sort. Use them within 4 to 6 months and they'll be fine for you. You could also dehydrate your fresh rosemary, and of course you would want to wash them and dry them really well. Place them in a single layer on a food dehydrator tray, and then you're going to follow the instructions that came with your dehydrator. Normally you're going to dry them at a very, very low setting, anywhere from 95 degrees to 115 degrees Fahrenheit. And then dry them until they are dry and brittle. And I can't tell you how long that's going to take. It depends on your dehydrator and the temperature that you use. Do bear in mind that dried rosemary will keep for a long time, but the flavor will dwindle after an extended period of time. You can also dry your fresh rosemary in an oven. You want to wash and dry your fresh rosemary sprigs really well. Place them on a single layer on a baking sheet that's been lined with parchment paper. Put them in your oven at the lowest temperature you possibly can. You want it as low as possible, below 170 degrees if your oven will go down that far. If it won't, you may want to open the door of the oven just a little bit so it will stay warm but at a little lower temperature. And you'll need to dry them. Now this process takes time, a lot of time. You want to allow them to sit in there until they're dry and brittle and the leaves easily fall off the stem. It might take anywhere from an hour to a day or two. It depends on your oven, how many are in there on the sheet, and the temperature. So I can't tell you how long it's going to take. That's a long process to run your oven, but that is an option. Another thing you can do is hang your rosemary to dry. And again, you would just wash and dry your sprigs, and you would bundle them up with the cut end at the top. Okay, this is where you've cut them, this is where it's growing from. Bundle them, tie them by that cut end, and then hang them somewhere to dry in a place where they will get plenty of air ventilation. You do want to make sure they get plenty of airflow in order to dry. That process in itself will take time. It might take about 2 weeks or so for them to dry, but you want to let them stay there until they're dry, brittle, and the leaves can easily be removed from the stems. And then once that happens, you want to transfer those leaves into an airtight container and store them like you would any dried herb. Another way to dry fresh rosemary is actually in the microwave. So you want to be careful with this so you don't burn it, but it's a fast way of drying them out. Okay, wash them and dry them well. Spread them on a couple layers of paper towels, and then of course put that on a microwave safe tray or dish. Put another layer of paper towels on top of your sprigs. Put them in the microwave and put them on high for 1 minute, and then thereafter in 20-second increments until they're dry enough to be crumbled. And then you'll want to separate the leaves from the stems. And again, you have to be very careful with this not to burn them, and of course you don't want them over dried or they might catch fire if you have them in there too long. So this is a careful process you have to be careful with, but initially you go for 1 minute on high and then 20 seconds at a time on high until they are completely dry. And as they're getting close, you might even reduce that time down to 10 seconds at a time. You just have to watch them carefully. Then once they're dried, you remove the stems from the leaves, put them in a sealed container and store them in your pantry like you would any dried herb. This is Judy at Judy in the Kitchen. I do hope this helps. Bye for now.